Somebody asked you a question.
Pin this. Just getting everything on my screen that I'm going to need. This. This. Just give me a second to finish setting up here because I had a whole bunch of. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. That's right. 29 again. Yeah, right.
I'll make a bro. In honor of your birthday.
Hey.
That's so great. You know what? We sometimes so
Something like that. That's right. Okay, I think I'm finally set up here.
I don't want to forget.
I don't want that up. I want.
So I either stand at the one thing
this.
or I go get my door. Yeah. So that I can make sure I really did it. And that I don't have a question because that was driving me crazy.
Sorry for the delay here. I just want to make sure I have everything set.
We need that. I heard about.
Keep up.
Do our tefillot here with concentration.
Okay, here we go.
How do you see that help?
Okay, so yeah, Boker Tov. I am today, as always, we learned the Gilui Nishmat Victor Chayavram ben Rachaleh Metzri. Also for Shlema for all Tsuim, all the Chatufim, everybody who needs a Refuah Shlema. Okay, so what I'd like to do today is two things. It's funny that the other night in the history class, I said I was in the Tefillah class and the history class, the two topics I was really enjoyed teaching. I teach a lot of stuff. I like specific areas within those subcategories. And it happens to be that this Mishnah that we're going to go through now is the second Mishnah in Pirke Gimel, chapter 3. We're in the second half of it. Some of you may have it as a separate Mishnah. I like it a lot for multiple reasons. It's a good jumping off point for history, which we're going to talk a little bit about one man in the Mishnah. And also we're going to talk about what seems to be somewhat of an enigma, this Mishnah. We'll see after I've gone through it. So I'm going to read, the Mishnah starts either Rabbi Chanina Skana Kohanim, which we already read about him, or it starts Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion. Depends on how your Mishnah is set up. But in either case, we're starting with Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion because we already talked about Chanina ben Skana Kohanim. Do you have it there or no?
Rabbi Chanina ben
Tradion. That's what we're up to. That's what we're starting with. Okay. Correct. Right. Okay. So we talked about that the last one, which we talked about the idea that he was a fill-in for every possible job a Kohen could do. Oh. And in spite of the fact that there were Kohanim Gedolim that died, he never moved up for a reason, because we talked about that all these Kohanim Gedolim at his time period already, they were already political appointees and hacks, and there was not anything to do with religion. And he was very true to who he was. And the Romans didn't want he what? It was Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion. That was his Ben Chanina Chaskana Kohanim. That was his title.
Oh, so the street Kohanim is a specific.
I don't know. I'd have to look at the blue sign and take a look. It could be. It could be. Right. Is in plural. Right. Very good. It's, by the way, speaking of that, Imkvar, you're saying that. If you know anyone whose last family name is Siegel, very often they're going to be Levi'im. Why? Because you spell it Samach Gimel Chupchik Lamed. It stands for Skan LeKohen, like the assistant to or the vice Kohen. Wow. So that's why Siegel very often, not always, but very often is a Levi. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about this man, Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, after I reread what he said. Let's take a look at the Mishnah. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion Omer, Shnayim Shioshvim. Two people were sitting around, and they don't say a single word of Torah. This is a seat of the scornful. Again, this particular word, Moshav Leitzim or Leitzim, we're going to come back to in depth. Shenemar Moshav Leitzim Lo Yashav, the very first parak of Tehillim, where it says Ashrei Isha Lo Yashav Lo Yamad V'chulei. It says there that happy is the person who has never sat in a gathering of the scornful. but two people who sit, yesh beinem divrei Torah, and they do speak Torah. Shechina shruya beinehem. The Shechina, the divine presence, rests with them. And shenemar az nidbru yirei Adonai ish el re'ehu vayakshev Adonai vayishma vayikatev sefer zikaron lefanav yirei Adonai lechoshrei shemo. Long pasuk they quote, which I'll read to you in English. I have it here somewhere. Then they that feared the Lord spoke one with another. The Lord hearkened and heard, and a book of remembrance was written before him. For them that feared the Lord, and that though his name, that thought upon his name. We're in chapter 3, second Mishne. So then Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion continues and says, based on this pasuk, we know that only if two people are sitting and don't say Torah, then there's no Shechina between them, or it's a Moshav Leitzim, a seat of the scornful. But what about, he says, Minayin shafilu echad sheoshev osek b'Torah. Where do you know that I'm sitting at home, or you're sitting home, you're sitting alone, you're learning something? How do I know also that the Shechina, the divine presence, is there? Shekadosh Baruch Hu kovea lo sachar. That God, how do we know God fixes a reward for him? Shnamar yeshev badad v'idom ki natal alav. Though he sit alone and meditate in stillness, yet he takes a reward unto himself. Okay, so before we get into the meanings behind this particular Mishnah, I want to talk about this man, Hanina ben Tradion, because there are a number of things to say about him. One of the main things that most people will be aware of is his name should be familiar to you for the reason of the Asar Harugei Malchut, the 10 martyrs. There are 10 people, we read about them on Tisha B'Av, and we read about them on Yom Kippur during Musaf. And the mistaken belief is that they all lived at the same time period and all 10 were killed at the same time. It's not true. It's a period of over 100 years, if I remember right, that these people were executed in different ways. Whether it was the one who had his body combed with metal combs or whatever. We're going to see specifically about Hanina ben Tradion in a few minutes. But who was he? And why am I going to spend a little bit extra time on him? Because as you're going to see now, we have so much to learn from not just what these Tanaim tell us, but also how they live their lives. We have what to learn from. He was a Av Beit Din. He was the head of a rabbinical court in the city of Sachnin, which is in the Galil Tachton, the Lower Galilee. He's listed in the Gemara as his main feature was a trustworthy gabbai. What was a gabbai? Not the guy who calls the person up to the Torah, but in this case, the one who was in charge of the tzedakah funds, the money of the community. And it says that he also became the dugma, the example of what you should be when you are the one who has to collect and distribute the funds. I'm going to read to you the Gemara. It says, now I'm going to be reading a lot of stuff today. You won't have any of it in front of you, but it's okay. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov said, Lo yitein adam pruta le'arnaki shel tzedakah. A person should not put a coin into the tzedakah pouch, tzedakah box, tzedakah pouch, elim ken memuneh aleha Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion. Unless the person who's responsible to distribute those coins is as trustworthy as Hanina ben Tradion. So he was known as being this virtuous person when it came to money. It's also important to remember, he was a Kohen. Now, one of the things that Kohanim that they did when they were in the Beit HaMikdash, there were no such things as pockets in the clothing of the Kohanim, because there was a lot of money that exchanged hands there, with korbanot and all. So the person shouldn't be suspected of money being put in a pocket, or an extra piece of meat being shoved in a pocket, take a little tin foil, like these 900-year-old people walk by the buffet. And I've seen some weird things at buffets, hotels. In any case, so he's famous for that. He's also famous for being one of the 10 martyrs. According to one opinion, he was executed on the 27th day of Sivan. And because of that, some people would fast specifically on that date. Now, it's interesting that we did the 27th Sivan. Yeah, a little bit after Shavuot. But the interesting thing is that I'm going to read you the Shulchan Aruch. Actually, it's the Tur. For those of you who are following Jewish history class, you'll remember a little bit about what the Tur was. And the commentary of the Beit Yosef, the Rabbi Yosef Karo, who says about this. So here's what it says in the Halacha. This isn't what we do, but this is what it says anyways in the Tur. Katav Bahag. it says in the Bahag. Bahag was an author of a book called it stands for Bal Halachot Gedolot. There are all kinds of, this is really a digression, but it's worthwhile. There are 613 mitzvot. We know that. Tayag mitzvot. What are they is subject to dispute because there are certain ones that are considered a mitzvah by one person, and one considered no, it's not its own mitzvah, it's subsumed under a different mitzvah. So there are all kinds of lists. There's the Rambam has Sefer HaMitzvot, there's the Bahag, Baal Sefer Mitzvot HaGdolot, and the Sefer Mitzvot, and the Smak, and all kinds of things. The Smag, I'm getting a little confused, but is Baal Sefer Halachot Gedolot, sorry. But there's, I'm mentioning it anyways. The Sefer Mitzvot Ktanot, Mitzvot Gedolot, doesn't mean that small mitzvot, big mitzvot. Just means different amount of words, I guess, in there. In any case, the Bahag, who was also a compiled halacha, said, Elu hayamim shemit'anim bahem min haTorah. The following are days that you're supposed to fast from the Torah. V'mit'aneh behem lo yochal behem v'lo yishteh ha'erev. And it's a daytime fast. Now, what does he mean by it's a Torah-based fast? It's not. It's not. It's obviously not, but I'm not going to get into that. And one of the things he says is, Kav Zayin Sivan. On the 27th of Sivan, why? Bo nisraf Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion b'Sefer Torah imo. That was the day in which Chanina. Does your book say Chanina ben Tradion or Chanagi ben Tradion? Because I see it all over different. Chanina, yeah, okay. Because most places I have is Chanina, but I've seen a couple of Chanina. You see both. Okay, interesting. So, and anyways, so the Torah says that some people, some tzaddikim, would fast on the 27th day of Sivan because that was the date in which Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion was burned along with the Sefer Torah. I'm going to read the story to you in the Gemara in a few minutes. Says the Beit Yosef, the commentary of the Rabbi Yosef Karo on this. No. All these different dates, and the Torah gave a whole list of other dates when people were executed or this bad thing happened that people should fast. He says, Ktuvim b'kolbo, b'siman samach gimel, they're brought in another Sefer called the Kolbo, again, not going into what that is. Avolo ra'iti me'olam. I've never seen people fast. V'lo shamati mi shenahag nit'anot b'hem. And I've never seen anybody who has a custom to actually fast on any of these days. Uve'emet, and actually, yesh li t'moa. I'm a little bit surprised. Amisha tiknam hechti ken k'tzatam nit'anot rosh chodesh. He says, not only that, he's saying about the tour. I'm really kind of surprised that you even wrote this because some of the dates you gave are as a fast day. It's Rosh Chodesh. You can't fast on Rosh Chodesh. So the Beit Yosef said that yes, very nice. You have all these dates. Maybe he put it in there because so we should just remember the dates of certain events of cataclysmic events in Jewish history. I don't know, but he says no, you don't have to fast. So if you're worried about this year on the 27th of Sivan, if you have to fast, the answer is no. I know you've dodged a bullet there, huh? All right, very much so. Now, what is it that happened with Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion? So I want to just pull it up here on the. Okay, I'm going to read this to you because it's a story that people may know part of it, which is, oh, he was burned with the Sefer Torah. But what was the lead up to it? Why? I mean, like, of all the different things that could happen, and why him? It's not short. It's not going to take me half an hour to read, but it's going to take a few minutes. Tana Rabbanan. Kishachala Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma got sick. Halach Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion levakro. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion went to visit him. Amarlo. So this man who was sick said to Rabbi Chanina, Chanina achi, my dear brother Chanina. Yeta yodea. Now, what was going on at this time is there was what was called Gzerat Shmad. The Jews were prohibited from learning Torah. Again, if you learn Jewish history, you know that these kind of things repeat over and over and over. So it was Gzerat Shmad, and this Chanina ben Tradion said, I don't care, I'm still going to learn, I'm still going to teach. So this man who's sick said to him, Chanina achi, yeta yodea, shumazo min hashamayim hindufuha. Don't you realize that this nation, the Romans, have been declared the rulers of this country right now from the heavens? This is min hashamayim. How do I know this? Because they were able to successfully burn down the Beit HaMikdash. Says that Rome destroyed the sanctuary, destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. They burned out, they destroyed people, the best of the people, and yet the country, Rome, still exists. So he says, Vani shamati alecha, and I heard about you, I heard that you're still teaching Torah, which they said you're not allowed to do. And you're gathering people together in public. And you walk around with a Sefer Torah, a small Sefer Torah with you on your lap and in your arms. I mean, it's like complete disregard for the decrees. So what's he saying? He's saying, oh, we shouldn't learn Torah? No, he's not saying that. He's saying, you're putting your fellow Jews into lives in danger. Do it somewhere if you want to do it. At least do it privately. Amarlo. So the response from Chanina was as follows: Mina Shamayim Yeruchamu, that may this heavens have mercy and protect. Now, parenthetically, if a person goes to a shiva house, there are two different versions of what you say, what a person says. The Ashkenazim, one is Hamakom Yenachem, and then Svaradi is Mina Shamayim Tunuchamu, or some form thereof. It's much shorter. Mina Shamayim Tunuchamu. That's it. Min Hashemayim Tunuchamu. From heaven you shall be comforted, right? Or they shall be comforted. You shall be comforted. And some will add the loto sifu la dava, or you should not have any more worries. Okay. So anyways, he said, look, God's got my back. I'm not so worried. Amarlo, ani omer lecha dvarim shel ta'am. V'ata omer li min hashamayim yeruchamu. I'm giving you tachlis practical advice. And you're saying, oh, heavens are going to protect me. Like, I'm going to walk in front of a car and God will protect me. No, you can't do that. So this man who was sick, Mishne ben Kisma, said, I'm wondering if, God forbid, what might end up happening is the Romans will burn you and your own Sefer Torah together. The story becomes a little more interesting now. Amarlo. So the response was, Rabbi, Mani olam haba. Am I destined for the world to come even? I mean, am I going to get olam haba? Amarlo kluma said baliyadecha. Did any special event occur that came to you that might show one way or another if you're getting olam haba? Amarlo. So he said, look, there was a case. Ma'ot shel purim nitchalfu li b'ma'ot shel tzedakah yichlaktim la'aniyim. There was money that was set aside for Purim, and there was money that was set aside for poor people in general. Somehow they got mixed up. And out of my own pocket, I ended up paying, giving out both. If there was this X amount, I gave that to the poor people, and I gave X amount from my own pocket for the for Purim. Amarlo. So Rabbi Chanina Kisa said, "Im kain michel kechayi chelki migoralcha yigorale." So if that's the case, may my portion be like your portion, and my lot be like your lot be my lot be like your lot. Meaning is that's fantastic. So of course you're going to Olam Haba. Of course you are. Amrulo. So the Chachamim said, Lo hayu mu'atim ad sheniftar Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. A short time after this, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma passed away. Al chukol gdolei Romi lekovro, and all the elders, the Gedolim of Rome came to bury him. V'ispiduhu hespei gadol, and they made this great eulogy. V'chazaratan mitzauhu Rabbi Chanina ben Tadyon, and while they were leaving the funeral, they're going back towards wherever they're going for their hovel. They come across Rabbi Chanina ben Tadyon, sheyoshev v'osek b'Torah, and makil kilot b'rabim. He was not only teaching Torah, but he was gathering people together and making these publicly in your face learning Torah. The Sefer Torah munach lo cheko, and he sat there teaching with the Sefer Torah on him. Hevi'uhu, they took him. The Romans took him. Uchrachuhu b'Sefer Torah, and they wrapped him in his own Torah. Again, the reason I'm reading this whole thing is, we say he was one of the 10 martyrs, and we know he was wrapped in Sefer Torah and burned, but now you see a little bit more background to why was this happening and what Torah was the one he himself would walk around with. And they wrapped him not only with the Torah itself, but they also took branches and wrapped around him. And they lit the fire. They used svogim shel tzemer, and then they took sponges of cotton, of wool, sorry. They put them on his chest, on his heart, so he should suffer. He shouldn't die so fast. Amra lo bito. So his daughter, who was there watching, said, Abba, eracha bechach? Is this how I have to see you? Amarle. So he said to her, Ilmale ani nisrafti levadi. If I was being burned to death by myself, that would be horrible. It'd be very difficult. Now that I'm being burned to death, and the Torah is with me, the one, meaning God, who will seek retribution for the insult to Torah, will seek retribution for the insult to me. So students said to him, this becomes another famous line, Rabbi, You're lying there dying. You're wrapped in the Torah. It's burning you. It's burning the Torah. What do you see? Amar lahem, he said, I see the parchment being burned, and the letters are flying up to heaven. He told him, open your mouth, allow the fire to go in. He said, says I should die from someone killing me. I shouldn't kill myself like that. And the story goes on about they take the tzemer and all, but the main thing here is when you read a Mishnah like this, Rabbi Hanina ben Chadion talks to us about what does it mean to have the Shekhinah. We're going to talk about that in the midst of two people, even one person. Now, obviously, when he wrote this, he wasn't dead. He was still alive as before the martyrdom. But this is the person who he was, that he couldn't care less about what someone said, about teaching Torah, promulgating Torah, and even if it was in public. Now, an argument can be made, was he doing the right thing, that he was putting other people in danger potentially? It's not up to me to decide something like that. But it is also important to note that this, who he was, that he said, look, it doesn't make a difference. And if you can't learn in a big, he's basically the implication is that if you can't learn with a bunch of people, sit and learn by yourself. A person might think, oh, please, who am I? I'm just learning a little Breshit Bara, Lokim et Hashemayim et Haaretz, and that's, but well, big deal. No, he said the Shekhinah comes to you, even if it's you're sitting there learning by yourself, and you get reward for that as well. So that's who he is or was. And now let's talk a little bit about what he said. So he said that Shnayim Shioshvim, two people that are sitting, the Ein Beinehem Divrei Torah, and there's no words of Torah between them. It's considered a seat of the scornful. And that's a very big problem to say something like that for two reasons. Number one, we're going to have to define the word letz. And what does it come from? Let's we translate as a scorner, one who scorned. What does that mean? So the problem with this Mishnah, him making that statement, is twofold. Number one, the Gemara in Sota that tells us, Arba kitot she'en mekablim pnei Shekhinah. There are four groups of people who will not, let's say, receive God, meaning that the Shekhinah won't come into their lives. They won't, what does it mean? Whatever it means. And one of them is katleitzim, the group of the scornful. So does that mean if I'm sitting with Mark, I like picking it. I'm sitting with Mark, we're standing outside talking after mincha, talking for 5 minutes, and we didn't say a word of Torah. Oof, that's it. We're done. No more Shekhinah comes to us, and it's no makabel pnei Shekhinah. Does that make any sense? Of course it doesn't. Question number two: how do we reconcile this with another very strong, or just in general, how do we reconcile with the strong statement that everywhere we look, leitzim are? It just says, like you look at the first Mishnah, first parak of Tilim, as he quotes, Uva Moshav leitzim lo yashav. Ashrei ha'ish. Happy is the person who has not. Shalom. I remember the words. Ashrei adam ish lo yashav. B'derech chatayim lo amadu. Uva Moshav leitzim lo yashav. So there's 4 different steps there: standing, walking, standing, sitting, whatever else, gathering. It doesn't say anything so bad. It's like happy is the person who never sat in a Moshav leitzim. Okay, I was like, it's great for him. So there's a couple answers here. Number one, we have to understand what is a letz. What does that mean? Lamed tzadi. So there are two, at least, kinds. The first one is not what he's referring to. The first one is somebody who mocks everything that somebody does for Torah, in mitzvot. He's a know-it-all. You can't tell him anything. This may sound familiar to you from a long time ago in Mesilat Yesharim when we talk about personalities like that. There's nothing in his eyes that he needs to repair. He's fine. It's fine. It's that kind of letz who makes fun of Torah, who makes fun of people who keep Torah mitzvot, who disregards any idea of self-improvement. That kind of letz, and no mekabel pnei Shekhinah. That kind of person doesn't get the Shekhinah, the joy of having the Shekhinah come to him. Again, what does that mean? Tachlis, I can't tell you. What kind of letz are we really talking about, or the Rabbi Hanina ben Chadion talking about? It's not that he's mezalzel, it's not that he cheapens the Torah and the people learn it, but life itself. I don't really take life very seriously. Everything's a joke. Again, Mesilat Yesharim talks about this too. Everything's a joke. This kind of perpetual time waster, and again, we all waste time. Everybody wastes time. But that's his job. It's just wasting time. It's just not being there. Not just he's not learning Torah. He's just everything is like a joke. So he's not making fun of the Torah or the people learning it, just life. And that kind of leitz deserves some form of derision from us. It says that kind of person is a moshav leitzim. Okay, that kind of person who just sits around wasting time, that's a moshav leitzim. The Mitzudat Zion points out something very interesting. Now, if you open a Navi, you'll see all kinds of commentaries. Mitzudat David, Rashi, Mitzudat Zion, Bartanura. Each one has its own, and even Ezra, each one has its own purpose and what they're doing. Mitzudat Zion, its goal is to explain the words. Like, what does this word mean? What does this phrase mean? So Mitzudat Zion says that the word leitz comes from the word militza. What's a militza? So we talk about, it should be a melitz yosher, right? A militzat yosher, which means an intercessor. What does that mean in normal English? So in general, the word militza means to speak with a poetic or flowery speech. What does that have to do with the leitz? What does that have to do with somebody who's a scoffer? So he explains, and on this first Pirke in Tehillim, he explains that the person is not just a scoffer, but he will twist everything about life as all wonderful and great, and it's all good. And he just uses his gift of gab to blow everything off in life. That's one of the things he says. What does this mean, though, in reality? Somebody who kind of just like cheapens the importance of Torah in life. What does that mean? You have all probably been in various shuls over your times of your lives where there's been a bar mitzvah and the boy gets a gift from the president of the shul, the rabbi of the shul, the head of some committee, and almost always they will say something to the effect, if they're given us a chumash, as was done in the shul I grew up in and then became the rabbi of, you're given actually no, I was given a becher, a kos, when I was a kid. But then later they changed to give a stone chumash, not a chumash, a stone chumash. And very often you'll have heard the president of the shul, the rabbi, say something to the effect of that this book we're giving you is the guidebook for life. This is your map of life. Everything you need to know is from here. And every time I heard that, whether it's in my own shul, other shuls, I kind of like it's not good. It's a very bad quality, I will tell you. I kind of like said to myself, like, really? Do you really believe that? Do you really, truly believe what you're saying to this boy? Not saying anything about any particular president of the shul we had. And they're all wonderful guys. I'm just saying in the general theme of community, how serious is Torah taken? And that's a communal question. It's an individual and it's a communal question. We've all been in many different communities, whether you've lived in different communities, you've visited different communities, whatever it is, and you see where Torah is taken care of in a different way than others. I will tell you 1,000% that the kinds, not just the amount, which is Baruch Hashem astronomical, but the kinds of questions that I get are radically different than I ever got in the United States. Radically. And that's great. It's great. Sometimes I'm shocked here and over there when I was asked a question that people, I'm surprised they even knew it was a question. And that was fantastic. I had a woman who one time called me up with a question, a very specific question, Hilchot Nidah. And I thought she probably never went to the mikvah in her life, but turns out she did. And she had a very specific question. I'm thinking to myself, that's fantastic. I really was very judgmental. Not good. But how a community takes Torah, whether it's serious or not. Are there shiurim? Are there people asking, is there Torah being asked to talk about in the street, not just in the shul? It's great. It's nice to live in a community where it is taken very seriously. And not that I came from wasn't taken seriously. Don't read anything into it. Start getting cards and letters. So you don't write cards and letters anymore, but get text messages. Someone else start my car, even though I don't have a car. So it's this type of litz that Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion is really talking about when he says that it's a moshav leitzim, that the person who sits in this like a seat of the scoffers, or the scornful. We have to keep in mind that Hashem gave us an amazing gift, and that gift is Torah. And we can't disregard it. can't disregard it. I want to read something to you. This is a little bit self-serving. That's okay. Good old two. Okay.
Birthday.
Oh, that's true. Okay, it's my birthday present to me. I'm going to read something to you. It's long, but I'm going to read you a short part of it. Get up the screen. So prepared today. Okay. I wrote this July 1st, 2007. That was the day after we told our community we're making Aliyah. It was the Shabbat day before. It was the 14th of Tammuz. And we announced, turns out that I wrote this on what became 4 years later, our Aliyah date, the date we actually left Chicago. In any case, or that we arrived in Israel. And you'll see why I'm reading to you. About 1 week ago, we let the rest of the world in on a little secret that our family had known for well over 2 years. We finally could share, I was 2 years after this. We finally could share with everyone our good news. We were going to make Aliyah. As the rabbi of a synagogue in Chicago and being very involved in the community, I was concerned that the reaction would be a very mixed one. On the one hand, I hoped that people would be happy for us. But on the other hand, I expected some negative feedback. I was pleasantly surprised when the positive comments were 99% of the reaction. However, I must say there was one comment that caught me completely off guard. One man approached me shortly after the conclusion of Shabbat, which I announced, and after verifying that he had heard correctly that indeed we were making Aliyah, he asked a one-word question. Why? For a moment, I hesitated in my reply. I thought he was asking why we chose to live in Ma'ale Adumim. No, he said. He was curious why we were making Aliyah altogether. I told him that rather than give him a brief, dismissive, on-the-spot response, I wanted to put my thoughts into writing and share them with others. That is the genesis of this article. I'm only going to read a little part of it too, because this is the point I need to make. The reasons are manifold, but I will try to coalesce them down into just a few thoughts that should encapsulate all that I and my family feel is the reason we are making Aliyah. First, though, I should address the reasons why we should not make Aliyah. My wife and I were born and raised in Chicago. Almost all of our family is in Chicago. We have most of our close friends in the city. I'm the rabbi in a community with involvement in people's lives and in many organizations. We have, thank God, a very nice, modest house, and we have been very happy with the education our daughters have received. I lost. Okay, and continue to receive. Our roots are here, and our lives are here. So how do we even think about making Aliyah? The truth is that there's one major flaw in the preceding paragraph. While our physical roots are in Chicago, our historical and spiritual roots are in the land of Israel. That being the case, our decision to make Aliyah is simply put, returning home. Home. It has such a warm and comforting sound. From the historical and spiritual perspectives, it is the land that Hashem promised our forefathers and gave to them as an inheritance for all of their children. As a descendant of the patriarchs, we are entitled, actually obligated, to accept this gift from Hashem and to settle in the land that he chose for us. Imagine for a moment that a human king came to your home and brought you the most beautiful present. The wrapping was magnificent and the box was very heavy. Then imagine leaving that present in your garage for years, occasionally looking at it. People come over and see the gift of the king and marvel at the beauty from afar and even encourage you to open it. But alas, you have not been moved to open the gift. Occasionally, you unwrap a little of the outer paper, but quickly after a few days, rewrap it, only to leave it covered for a few more years. In my mind, that is how I see our relationship. Oops, I lost it. Hold on, literally, figuratively. I see our relationship with the land of Israel. Hashem gave us this magnificent gift. He told us that in that land we can do more mitzvot than anywhere else on earth. He told us that we will have a special reward for living there, and he told us that he too will live there with us. After many years, still gets to me. After many years of leaving his gift in the garage, and many years of unwrapping the gift, only to rewrap it, we've decided to open the gift. That's this mission. That's this Mishnah. To understand the gift Hashem gave us. It's Israel, it's the Torah, the Jewish people. And when we do that, how in the world could we sit, stomp with somebody Yeah, we talk and we walk in the street and we talk and that's great. I'm saying people you can just sit down and just talk for 3 hours. For 2 hours, you're not a word of Torah. And the guy just going like, hello, do you see me? No, not physically. But if you do start seeing God, please let me know. We'll have a talk. So that's what this Mishnah really is about. And how we have to understand that when people sit together, how important Torah is, because that's the purpose also of getting together. And yes, we do get together, we talk, and we shoot the breeze and all that kind of stuff. But now, when it says Shnayim shoshim yesh benhem divrei Torah, then it's the Shechina comes there, right? 2 people sit and the Shechina comes. Very nice, but there is a couple problems with that. Number one, what does exactly mean Hashra'at Shechina? What does that mean? The divine presence rests there. I mean, God's everywhere. Number two, how does it manifest itself? And number two, there's multiple sources that say the Shekhinah, the divine presence, really only appears, as it were, when there are 22,000 Jews in one place, like at a Kiddush on a Shabbat morning. And there are multiple references to that, Shuva Rivot Yisrael and all kinds of, I'm not going to get into details. So how does it that the Shekhinah could rest on 2 people only? So I think it should be obvious, but there are different levels of Shekhinah. There are different levels. This is a very abstract topic. I'll try to put it into one example I've given many times over the years, and then I'll give you the words of the Or HaChaim. Right now, where we are sitting, it's daytime because you could look outside the window and you can see the sunlight, right? You can see behind you that the sun is streaming down and you can see it on the ground. And you can look towards the mountains, you can see the sun. But you're not getting the direct warmth right now of the sun. You can't get the UV rays. I can stand here all day in front of the window, the sun coming through, and I won't get a suntan or a sunburn because the UV won't penetrate the glass. But we still get the benefit of it. Now, what if I went outside, say it's June or July in the Northern Hemisphere. I go outside and it's Fahrenheit 95 degrees outside, which is a cool day in the summer here in Ma'ale Adumim. And I stand outside, the sun's beating down on me, right? So did the sun move? The sun didn't move. Is the same, the peasants there, the same floor is here, the same house is here. What happened? I changed my relative position to where the sun was. I got closer. I got more intense. So I've always pictured it that, and that's why I say the Shekhinah emanates from the Har HaBayit, from the Temple Mount, and from Beit HaMikdash, and that's how I've always pictured it. The intensity, the closer you are to it. So we're talking about here, there are different levels of Shekhinah, but instead of listening just to my words, let's take a listen to something the Or HaChaim tells us. Suppose I can read it. Okay. It's quoted by Rav Lau in his Sefer on Pirke Avot. I'm just going to read to you what he says. Or HaChaim HaKadosh masbir et haftachat HaKadosh Baruch Hu leYaakov Avinu. The Or HaChaim explains the promise Hashem made to Yaakov when he said to him, which we just read, Anochi ered imcha Mitzrayim. I will go down with you to Mitzrayim. How does that work out? How does that correlate to the fact that the Chazal tell us, that the Shekhinah did not rest in Egypt because the land was filled with idolatry. So on the one hand, according to one opinion, according to Chazal, it's Hashem says, I'm going down with you to Egypt, to Yaakov. It means that Shekhinah is going with. The other one says Shekhinah wasn't in Mitzrayim because of idolatry. His response is, there are different levels of the light of the Shekhinah. In different levels in the way that the Shekhinah is revealed to the human. This is the quote now from the Or HaChaim. There's limitless amounts of levels of the revelation of Shekhinah in this world. For example, if you look at the concept of the level of the revelation at Sinai when we were getting the Torah, that's like the highest. And then you go down one level, and that's the revelation of the Shekhinah and the Beit HaMikdash. And below that was the revelation of the Shekhinah to a Navi, to a prophet. and then in the level of Shekhinah that appears in the Beit Knesset, and in the Beit HaMidrash, and then 10 people who are learning Torah, and then 2 people or 1 person. So he's telling us that there is this idea of Hashem said, my Shekhinah is going to go down with you, but not my Shekhinah with the capital Shin, my big Shekhinah, a more, again, we're talking anthropomorphically, and it's all kind of mufshat, which means abstract, a more condensed lower level, in quotes, of the Shekhinah was with Bnei Israel in Mitzrayim. So that's how we can answer, what does it mean, the Shnaim Shoshvim, that they had to have Divrei Torah between them. The Shekhinah comes to there, it's not the same level of Shekhinah as was at Har Sinai, not the same level of Shekhinah that was in the Beit HaMikdash, but it is still something. I'll take anything I can get, I would say. And therefore, it's not just to have the high level of Shekhinah, they have to be the 22,000 Jews. But otherwise, there's still Shekhinah that comes, but at a different level. Slide of Chaim to explain this. Wow, I did it. Okay. Now, one last question. We just said that 2 people, you don't have Torah between you, there's no Shekhinah, right? And then a long pasuk to explain, and that's the way, how do we know if it's only 1 person? So if it comes for 1 person, well, it'll come for 2, right? So why not just say, if 1 person learns Torah, Shekhinah comes, then we'll know that when 2 people are together, there's Torah. When there's 5 people together, there's Torah. Matter of fact, the next Mishnah, 3 people that ate at the same table and didn't say Torah, it's Kilu that ate from Shulchan Zichei Metim, a table of whatever. It's not good stuff. I'll do that next week. Okay, but just start off with 1. Once I know 1 person, the Shekhinah can come to that person. I know that even with 2 people that are talking Torah, the Shekhinah comes there. If there's no Torah, there's no Shekhinah coming there. So I'm sure there are many answers, but I'm going to give you an answer that I thought of to make a comparison to something else, and it's as follows. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch that says that wherever you're davening, we know this, that you're supposed to be, just this over. Okay, you're supposed to daven, it says, wherever you are in the world, facing Yerushalayim. It's facing Israel. If you're in Israel, you face Yerushalayim. If you're in Yerushalayim, you face the area of the Kotel Ma'avavi, the Western Wall. And if you're by the Kotel, you should face towards the Kodesh Kodashim, which is the Holy of Holies, which is why when you see people davening Kotel, sometimes you'll see them davening on an angle to the left, because that's the direction where the Kodesh Kodashim was, if you're standing by the outside part of the Kotel. Chofetz Chaim asks a very simple question. Just say, wherever you are in the world, face towards the Kodesh Kodashim, the holiest of holies. Why say, if you're outside Israel, face Israel? If you're in Israel, face Yerushalayim. If you're in Yerushalayim, face... Just say, wherever you're in the world, aim, quote, towards the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies. He says, because when it comes to levels of Kedusha, holiness, and growth, you can't go from 0 to 60. There's steps. There are different stages you have to go through in growth. The same thing over here, I believe, that we know, yes, of course, with 1 person that there's learning Torah, that there's a level of Shekhinah, but it's telling us also in the reverse that the more people that there are, the greater revelation of Shekhinah is present. And it's a matter also of growth, which gives a lot of, I don't know what the word is, not power, but a stamp of approval that the more people you learn together, the better the situation is. Some of you know that since I've sort of retired, I go a couple mornings a week to Pirke to learn. So one of the things I planned for years, I wanted to sit and learn a few hours a couple times a week. I could sit at home. What I do in Yeshiva Pirke Moshe, I'm not sitting and learning with anybody. I'm doing my own thing. I can do it at home. I could sit out in the park. Why there? It's an atmosphere. It's a feeling of being with other people. And you feel more of the Shekhinah's there. You feel more alive, and you hear until they stand 2 people right next to you yelling about a Gemara right in your ear, and you have to move, which never happened to me till last week, twice. It's okay. It's a base measure. So that's part of what this mission is about. Number 1 is about the gift. Don't squander the gift. Number 2, it's about whether you're with other people or you're by yourself and you learn Torah. There's the Shekhinah is always there, not on the same level as Har Sinai, but at the same, but at some level. And when you waste that time, I'm not talking about how we all waste time. I'm talking about wasting time as a profession. And become just a letz and scornful of life in general. Is like, what's the use? Might as well just do what I want to do. It takes away from the Shekhinah as well. Okay. Okay, I think that's enough for today. Everyone should have a good rest of the week and Shabbat Shalom. And I was going to say something. Next week, there's I'm retired, but I still go in a little bit. So there's Bagut for on Wednesday and Thursday. I'm only gonna go on Thursday to do testing, so I'm not sure yet what time that starts. If it's late enough, I'll do the class. If it's not, maybe I'll do the class a little earlier in Zoom skedaddle. But either way, hopefully we'll have some class.